Just pause for a moment. Not because something urgent is about to happen, but because sometimes the most important moments are the quiet ones we usually skip. Before you scroll again, before your attention moves somewhere else, before your thoughts start racing ahead, stay right here for a few seconds. Just breathe. Nothing more than that.
Right now, there's nothing expected from you. No answer you need to prepare. No sentence you need to build in your head. No English you need to get right. This isn't a test. And this isn't a lesson in the way you might be used to.
A lot of places make us feel like we're being watched, like every word is being judged, like silence means failure. And over time, that pressure builds quietly, until even simple conversations start to feel heavy.
You begin thinking before you speak. You hesitate. You replay sentences in your mind. And sometimes you decide not to speak at all. Not because you don't know English, but because the moment doesn't feel safe.
That's something people don't talk about enough. Confidence isn't only about vocabulary. It's about comfort. It's about how your body feels when it's your turn to talk.
And if your chest feels tight, if your thoughts feel crowded, if your voice feels far away, no amount of rules can fix that. Only space can.
That's why this conversation sounds different. Why it moves slower. Why we don't rush from one idea to the next. Because real conversations don't push you forward. They sit with you.
They give you time to think. They allow pauses. They don't punish silence. And when silence feels safe, words eventually follow.
This is Speak Unstoppable. Not a place where you're told what to say, but a place where you slowly remember that you can speak. Without fear. Without pressure. Without feeling behind.
Here, English isn't something you perform. It's something you experience. You hear it. You feel its rhythm. You notice how ideas flow naturally from one thought to another.
And without realizing it, your mind starts to relax. You stop translating every word. You stop correcting yourself mid-sentence. You start listening, not for mistakes, but for meaning.
That's how language was always meant to be learned. Not through tension, but through connection.
Maybe you've had moments like this before. Late at night, talking to someone you trust, where words came out easily, even in a language that usually feels difficult.
Those moments weren't accidents. They happened because you felt comfortable, because you weren't being judged, because your mind wasn't trying to protect you.
We want to recreate that feeling here, again and again, until it becomes familiar, until English stops feeling like a barrier and starts feeling like a bridge.
And if you're wondering whether this slow pace is really helping, it is. Because when you feel calm, your brain listens differently. It absorbs without effort.
So if this moment feels gentle to you, if you notice your shoulders relaxing or your breathing slowing down, that matters. That means this space is working.
And if you'd like to support that, do one small thing for us. Tap the like button. Not as a task, but as a quiet signal that this kind of conversation is needed.
It helps this calm reach people who might be scrolling while carrying the same pressure you once felt. People who don't need louder lessons, they need softer ones.
And if you want more conversations like this, unhurried, honest, human. Subscribe and stay with us. We don't rush here. We don't force progress.
We trust that confidence grows when it's given time. So stay with us. Stay in this pace. Stay in this feeling. Because some of the best conversations don't start with words. They start with comfort. You know, something interesting happens when you stay in a calm moment for a little longer. At first, your mind keeps moving. Random thoughts appear. Plans, worries, unfinished sentences. But if you don't chase them, they slowly soften.
And in that softness, you begin to notice small things. The sound of a voice, the space between words, the way a sentence doesn't rush to end. That's usually when understanding starts, quietly.
Most people think learning happens when information is pushed into the mind. But real learning often happens when pressure is taken away, when there's no fear of being wrong, no urgency to respond.
Because urgency makes the mind defensive. It closes doors. It tells you to protect yourself. And language can't grow in a closed space.
Think about the times when speaking felt easiest for you. Not in a classroom, not during a test, but during a simple conversation, when no one was counting your mistakes.
Maybe you didn't even realize you were speaking correct English then, because you weren't trying to. You were just expressing a thought. That's the difference.
Here, we don't separate language from feeling. We don't pull sentences apart. We let them arrive whole. You hear a thought, you feel its meaning, and your mind connects the dots naturally.
That's why we don't rush explanations. Why we don't interrupt the flow to point at rules. Because rules can wait. Comfort can't.
When comfort comes first, confidence follows on its own. You stop asking, "Is this sentence perfect?" And you start asking, "Did I express myself?"
And that question is much kinder, much more human. Because communication was never about perfection. It was always about connection.
Sometimes people feel embarrassed about pausing while they speak. They think silence means weakness. They think pauses mean they don't know enough. But pauses are natural. Even native speakers use them.
A pause is not a failure. It's your mind choosing the next thought. And when you allow pauses, your speech becomes calmer, clearer, stronger.
That's something we want you to feel here. That taking your time is allowed. That thinking is part of speaking. You don't need to rush to sound confident.
Confidence sounds quiet. It sounds steady. It sounds like someone who isn't afraid of silence.
As you listen to this conversation, you might notice something else too. Certain phrases feel familiar. Certain structures repeat naturally. Not because they're being taught, but because real language does that.
Your brain loves patterns. When it feels relaxed, it notices them on its own. That's when phrases start sticking. That's when English stops feeling random.
You don't need to memorize today. You don't need to repeat after us. Just listen. Let the rhythm settle. Your mind knows what to do when it isn't being forced.
And if at any point you miss a word, That's okay. Understanding doesn't come from catching every word. It comes from catching the feeling.
Meaning arrives first, words follow later. That's how children learn. That's how we all learned our first language, without pressure, without explanation.
So if you ever feel lost while listening, don't pull yourself out of the moment. Stay. Let the next sentence guide you back. Language always gives context when you give it patience.
This slow approach might feel unfamiliar at first, especially if you're used to being pushed, corrected, rushed. But unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong.
Sometimes unfamiliar means healing. It means you're finally learning without carrying fear. And learning without fear lasts much longer.
As we continue talking, you might notice your thoughts becoming quieter, not empty, just clearer. That's the space where real expression lives.
And that space belongs to you, not to rules, not to judgments, just to you and your voice.
You don't have to speak louder. You don't have to speak faster. You just have to feel safe enough to speak at all.
And if you're listening to this while doing something else, walking, resting, sitting quietly, that's perfect. This conversation is meant to sit beside your life, not interrupt it.
Stay with this pace. Stay with this feeling. Because confidence doesn't arrive suddenly. It grows slowly in moments like this. There's a moment that happens quietly when you've been listening for a while. You don't notice it immediately, nothing dramatic changes, but something inside you starts to loosen.
Your thoughts slow down just enough for one clear idea to rise. Not perfectly shaped, not fully polished, just honest.
That's usually the moment when people think they should start speaking, and then they stop themselves. They think, what if it sounds wrong? What if I pause too much? What if I choose the wrong words?
Those questions don't come from language. They come from fear. Fear of being seen, fear of being judged, fear of being interrupted.
But notice something important. Those fears don't disappear when your English improves. They disappear when the space feels safe.
That's why confidence often shows up in unexpected places, not in exams, not in presentations, but in quiet conversations with someone who listens, with someone who doesn't rush you.
In those moments, you don't search for perfect sentences. You start with meaning, and meaning is patient.
You might begin slowly. You might pause in the middle. You might change direction halfway through, and somehow the other person still understands you. Soft confidence.
That's when you realize something surprising. Communication doesn't break just because your sentence isn't perfect. It breaks when you're too afraid to continue.
So instead of asking, "Is my English good enough?" a gentler question appears. Can I stay with my thought for one more second?
That single second matters. It gives your mind time to choose meaning over speed. And when meaning leads, language follows.
This is something native speakers do without realizing it. They pause. They restart. They soften their voice when they're unsure. None of that sounds weak. It sounds human.
But learners are often taught to hide those moments, to speak quickly, to avoid pauses, to sound confident at all costs. And that pressure steals the voice.
Because confidence isn't loud. It doesn't rush to finish a sentence. It doesn't panic during silence. Confidence trusts that the next word will come.
As you listen to this conversation, you might notice how often ideas are allowed to breathe. We don't hurry to explain. We don't force conclusions. We let thoughts unfold.
That's not accidental. That's how your brain learns to stay present in English. Not alert, not defensive, just present.
Presence changes everything. When you're present, you stop translating every word. You stop checking grammar in your head. You listen for meaning. And meaning feels familiar.
That familiarity is powerful. It tells your brain, I've been here before. And when the brain recognizes a feeling, it relaxes.
Relaxation is not laziness. It's readiness. A relaxed mind notices patterns. It remembers phrases. It connects sounds to ideas.
That's why forcing confidence never works for long. But allowing comfort builds confidence quietly.
You don't need to sound like anyone else. You don't need a different personality in English. Your pauses are allowed. Your rhythm is allowed. Your way of thinking is already enough.
And when you accept that, your voice starts to feel closer. Not distant, not blocked, just waiting.
Sometimes people say, I know the words, but I can't speak. What they often mean is, I don't feel safe enough to let the words out.
Safety changes that. Not immediately, not dramatically, but gradually. One calm conversation at a time.
That's why we stay in this pace, why we don't rush forward, why we don't interrupt silence. Because silence is not empty, it's space.
And space is where confidence grows. Not because someone pushed you, but because no one pulled you back.
If you ever find yourself quietly forming a sentence while listening, not to repeat it, not to test it, just noticing it, that's enough.
That's language waking up. Gently, naturally, without permission.
So stay with this feeling, the calm, the patience, the space to think.
Because your voice doesn't need to be louder. It just needs room.
And when it has room, it finds its way. So far, we've warmed up our minds, we've felt the calm, and we've seen how our brain and mouth need space to connect. But now comes the exciting part, the part where we actually train our mouth, where thought turns into movement, where hesitation begins to fade.
Exactly. This is where your mouth goes to the gym. Not the heavy gym with weights, but the English gym, right in your room. 5 minutes, just 5 focused minutes. And the effect is bigger than you think.
Let's break it down. There are 4 steps that you can do every day. And you don't need a teacher, a fancy microphone, or even a new sentence every day. It's simple, it's personal, and it trains both your brain and your mouth together.
Step 1. Mouth warm-up. This is only about 1 minute, but it wakes up the muscles you rarely use in English. Lips. Buzz gently like a tiny motorbike. Tongue. Stretch out, then pull back. Jaw. Yawn wide, relax softly. Smile. Stretch like you just passed your English test.
It feels silly, right? But that silliness removes tension, activates your muscles, and slowly your brain says, "Oh, I'm allowed to move my mouth in English."
Step 2. Mirror technique. Stand in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes. Pick one strong sentence like, I am training my mouth to speak English. Say it 5 times. First slowly, then a little faster each time. Watch your lips, your jaw, your face. Notice every movement.
The mirror is not a judge, it's your silent coach. It builds awareness. It builds confidence.
Step 3. Shadow speaking. This is where the magic starts. Pick a short English clip, 5 to 10 seconds. Listen carefully. Then repeat exactly the same rhythm, speed, and tone. You're copying the flow, not your version. Your ears, mouth, and brain work together. You don't translate, you just react.
It's like babies learning their first language. They listen, copy, repeat. And slowly, it becomes natural. Just 2 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Pick a few lines. Repeat them until your mouth feels comfortable.
Step 4. Fluency loop. Pick a simple sentence. Say it 3 times at 3 speeds. Slow. I am going to improve my English. Normal. I am going to improve my English. Fast. I'm going to improve my English. Do this for 1 minute. Repeat the loop 3 times. Your mouth learns speed, rhythm, and clarity.
See? That's it. Just 5 minutes a day. Warm up, mirror, shadow, fluency loop. Your mouth will start moving smoothly. Your confidence will grow. Your brain and mouth will finally work together.
And here's the secret. You don't need perfect sentences. You don't need a native accent. You only need a brave mouth that moves again and again.
Now let's talk about real-life application. Even if you only practice 1 sentence per day, you can expand it into different situations. Job interview. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Romantic moment. You're so kind. I don't know what to say. Awkward situation. Wow, that was strange. Your mouth starts reacting naturally. Your brain stops translating. Fluency becomes a habit.
Another layer is sound clusters. Real English isn't word by word. Textbook. I am going to the market. Natural. I'm going to go to the market. Smooth, connected, musical. Choose 3 clusters every day. Say them like a tiny song or rhythm. Record yourself. Feel the flow.
This trains your muscles, ears, and mind together. And it makes speaking English less robotic, more natural, more human.
And finally, don't forget the brain part. Emotion matters. Movement matters. Stand, walk, gesture, smile. Speak with excitement, curiosity, or calm. Train your brain to feel the sentence, not just think it.
It's okay to feel awkward. It's okay to feel shy. Even practicing alone changes your future.
So here's your tiny daily routine. 1 minute warm-up. 1 minute mirror sentence. 2 minutes shadow speaking. 1 minute fluency loop.
After 30 days, your English will live in your mouth, not just your head. You'll speak smoother. You'll feel confident. You'll finally trust your voice.
And here's your homework. Yes, a tiny promise to yourself. Stand up. Say one sentence aloud. Look at yourself in the mirror. Say, I am training my mouth to speak English.
Write in the comments, I will train my mouth every day, no matter what. We'll quietly cheer for you. We'll celebrate each brave mouth in this community.
Your progress doesn't end here. Fluency isn't a magic talent. It's a decision, a choice to train every day, even for 5 minutes.
This is Jake. This is Maria. And this was your English Leap podcast, your cozy place for easy English, a stronger, more confident speaking mouth, and a brave heart willing to move.
Keep practicing, keep moving, and remember, your voice already wants to be heard.